Hello dear learners, I am Dr. Aerum from NCERT, New Delhi. Today we will discuss about the dimensions of environmental education, where we will emphasize on environmental studies. In today's discussion, we will look on the role of environmental education in terms of environmental studies in the educational scenario, various aspects of environmental studies, aims and objectives of environmental studies. Environment has become a focus of our concern today. Providing environmental education to children is now a critical need. Considering the urgency of the situation, the earlier used infusion model, where environmental education was taught infused with other subjects, has to be discarded by the curriculum planners. The growing need of this subject demands that environmental education should be taught as a separate subject. The main emphasis of environmental education is to acquaint students with environment-related issues and problems. According to UNESCO 1978, environmental education is defined as education that helps individuals to become more knowledgeable about their environment and to develop responsible environmental behavior and skills so that they can improve the quality of the environment. Here we need to have a look on what is environmental studies. One of the meanings of environmental studies, especially in terms of school education, attaches it to primary schooling, where science is taught in the form of EVS or environmental studies till 5th standard. There are no prescribed textbooks for 1st and 2nd, and under EVS, science and social sciences are clubbed together. The main emphasis is made on making children aware of their neighborhood, surroundings, peer group, family and society. The National Curriculum Committee had recommended in the 1975 policy document that the curriculum for the 10-year school, a framework, that is a single subject, environmental studies, be taught at the primary stage. It has proposed that in the first 2 years, which is class 1st and 2nd, environmental studies will look at both the natural and the social environment, while in classes 3rd to 5th, there would be separate portions for social studies and general science, termed as EVS Part 1 and Part 2. The National Policy on Education 1986 and the National Curriculum Framework 1988 also posited the same approach for the teaching of environmental studies at the primary stage. Contemporary research on how children learn to make sense of the world around them and how pedagogy in primary school can enable them to develop scientific abilities and understanding in consonance with social and environmental concerns has further supported this integrated structure. The NCF 2000 had recommended that environmental studies be taught as an integrated course for the entire primary stage, instead of it in two distinct parts devoted to science and social studies in classes 3rd to 5th. The present NCF, which is NCF 2005, has called for the continuation and further strengthening of this integrated approach for environmental studies during the primary years. NCF 2005 and Objectives of Environmental Studies. The National Curriculum Framework 2005 indicates some of the objectives of teaching science and social sciences combinedly, stated as EVS at the primary stage as follows. The first objective is to train children to locate and comprehend relationships between the natural, social and cultural environment, to develop an understanding based on observation and illustration drawn from lived experiences and physical, biological, social and cultural aspects of life rather than abstractions. To create cognitive capacity and resourcefulness to make the child curious about social phenomena, starting with the family and moving on to wider spaces. To nurture the curiosity and creativity of the child, particularly in relation to the natural environment, including artifacts and people. to develop an awareness about environmental issues, to engage the child in exploratory and hands-on activities to acquire basic cognitive and psychomotor skills through observation, classification, inferences, etc. To emphasize design and fabrication, estimation and measurement as a prelude to the development of technological and quantitative skills at later stages, to be able to critically address gender concerns and issues of marginalization and oppression with values of equality and justice and respect for human dignity and rights. This syllabus web has been developed within a child-centered perspective of themes that provide a common interface of issues in social studies, sciences and environmental education. The syllabus for classes 3rd to 5th is woven around 6 common themes given here. The predominant theme on family and friends encompasses 4 sub-themes: relationships, work and play, animals, plants. Then the next sub-theme is food, shelter, water, travel, things we make and do. In general terms, environmental studies is a multidisciplinary academic field which systematically studies human interaction with the environment in the interest of solving complex problems. Environmental studies brings together the principles of the physical sciences, commerce, economics, and social sciences so as to solve contemporary environmental problems. It is a broad field to study that includes the natural environment, the built environment, and the sets of relationships between them. The field encompasses study in basic principles of ecology and environmental science, as well as associated subjects such as ethics, geography, anthropology, policy, politics, urban planning, law, economics, philosophy, sociology, and social justice, planning, pollution control, and natural resource management. Now, the question is that how people perceive environment. Tani in 2006 identified 3 different ways of how individuals view the environment, which include environment as an entity, environment as an experienced phenomenon, environment as a socially, culturally produced phenomenon. Environmental Protection Act 1986 defined environment as the sum total of water, air and land, their interrelationship among themselves and with the human beings, other living beings and property. Shepardson et al. 2007 have argued that the way students conceive the environment shapes the way in which they understand environmental issues and also shape their behavior. Teachers' understanding of environmental education shapes their teaching practices. First of all, let us consider environment as an entity. When the environment is perceived as an entity, the environment is taken to be something which is not linked to man but separate from man, like the sun, the moon, etc. This way of perceiving the environment can be referred to as the objective view of the environment. Now let us consider environment as an experienced phenomenon. In this view, environment is seen as a space which surrounds an individual, and the individual is at the center of that space. This is a subjective view of the environment because it gives the notion that man has control over the environment. Environment as a locally and socially produced phenomenon. According to this view, man is an integral part of the environment and he shapes it through his social and cultural behavior. This implies that knowledge about the environment depends on the understanding of man and his or her social and cultural aspects and not from the environment itself only. Environment in totality. When environment is considered in its totality, it can be defined as the totality of the things that surround man, which can be categorized into the biophysical, social, economic and political aspects. Education for sustainable development. Education for sustainable development is a concept which came into being when sustainable development became the agenda of development forums. Sustainable development was initiated as a result of conflicts between social development, economic growth, and environmental conservation. Education for sustainable development is defined by the Council of Environmental Education for National Curriculum of England and Wales as education that enables people to develop knowledge, values, and skills in decision making about the way they do things individually and collectively, both at local and global levels, that will improve the quality of life now without damaging the planet for the future. Closer look at the relationship between environmental education and sustainable development reveals that environmental education and education for sustainable development both have the same vision, which is creating a better world where there is a balance between economy, ecology, and society. Environmental education is thus inseparable from sustainable development because it is a component for sustainable development. Being a component of sustainable development, it has to deal with social, political, economic, and ecological or biophysical aspects of the human environment. Notably, the social aspects deal with people, culture, interactions, services, and utilities. The political aspects of environmental education deals with policies, laws, decisions, programs, etc. The economical aspect deals with the monetary part, and the most important ecological or biophysical aspect deals with the relationships between living and non-living things and their life support systems, which include plants, animals, fish, birds, microorganisms, worms, air, soil, water, rocks, life cycles, food chains, physical features, etc. Now, let us see the dimensions of environmental education. It includes three dimensions, which are environmental education as education about the environment, environmental education as education in or through the environment, then environmental education as education for the environment. This implies that environmental education has to assume the role of helping the individual develop knowledge about his or her environment, which he or she can get through interacting with the environment, and finally, he or she can use the knowledge and skills to conserve or take care of the environment. Importance of environmental education. The importance of environmental science and environmental studies cannot be disputed. The need of sustainable development is a key to the future of mankind. Continuing problems of pollution, solid waste disposal, degradation of environmental issues like economic productivity and national security, global warming, the depletion of ozone layer and loss of biodiversity have made everyone aware of environmental issues. It is clear that no citizen on the earth can afford to be ignorant of environment issues. Environmental management has captured the attention of healthcare managers. Managing environmental hazards has become very important. Objectives of environmental education. According to UNESCO 1971, the objectives of environmental education are creating the awareness about environmental problems among people, imparting basic knowledge about the environment and its allied problems, developing an attitude of concern for the environment, motivating public to participate in environment protection and environment improvement, acquiring skills to help the concerned individuals in identifying and solving environmental problems, striving to attain harmony with nature. Now let us see the guiding principles of environmental education. According to UNESCO, the guiding principles of environmental education should be as follows. Environmental education should be compulsory right from the primary up to the postgraduate stage. Environmental education should have an interdisciplinary approach by including physical, chemical, biological, as well as socio-cultural aspects of the environment. It should build a bridge between biology and technology. Environmental education should take into account the historical perspective, the current and the potential historical issues. Environmental education should emphasize the importance of sustainable development, that is, economic development, without degrading the environment. Environmental education should emphasize the necessity of seeking international cooperation in environmental planning. Environmental education should lay more stress on practical activities and first-hand experiences. So let us summarize today's topic. Today we have discussed about the area of environmental studies, its importance, its components, and also the other details related to this area. We have also discussed the role of education for sustainable development. Hope things are clear to you and you will apply this knowledge to enhance your abilities. Thank you.